My name is Colleen Foster. I'm the City of Oceanside's Environmental Officer. I think we're going to go ahead and get started today. This recording of this workshop will actually be recorded. So we will be posting this workshop later on our city's Green Oceanside website, as well as Waste Management's resource page for Oceanside solid waste recycling and organic services. So I'm pleased to be here. Hosting this webinar is myself and my colleague, Annika Anderson, an environmental specialist with our city's Green Oceanside team, as well as Daniel Butler, the Customer Service Relations Manager for Waste Management. He'll be here with us today to answer any questions and go over the city's new recently launched food scraps recycling program. So with that, Annika, can you please post the PowerPoint? Thank you.
Yes, and I want to remind everyone to please put their Zoom onto speaker view so you can see who's speaking while we go through the PowerPoint.
And also, please feel free to add any questions you have in the chat. We will be responding to questions throughout and at the end of the workshop. Again, this is being recorded. Thank you. So today, as mentioned, we are here to talk about Oceanside's new food scraps recycling program. It is a series of webinars we're hosting. Today's webinar is focused on back to basics. As mentioned already, our two speakers today will be myself and Annika Anderson, and Daniel Butler with Waste Management is here to provide assistance as well. So why a food scraps recycling program? Well, the food scraps recycling program has primarily been pushed by the state of California. The state of California has very aggressive goals towards mitigating emissions and climate action, and in particular, organics is the second largest contributor to methane emissions from landfills. So when you remove organics from landfills and you divert these materials either through waste prevention, recovery, or recycling, at the end of the day, the effort not only helps to mitigate what's being sent to landfills, but helps the state meet its climate action targets and its emission reduction targets. It represents a significant amount of material across the state. In California, 6 million tons of food scraps are wasted on a yearly basis. Upwards of 40% of that is considered edible. So meaning, was edible when it hit the trash can or the landfill bin. So as part of California's new mandates towards recycling, it's also the mandates have focused on what we can do for food waste prevention and food recovery. We'll be talking about this a little later on today, but the primary driver right now that is pushing for organics programs and food waste recycling programs is the state of California's mandates, in particular AB 1826, as well as SB 1383, which goes into effect January 1st of 2022. At a local level, the city of Oceanside, as you may know, has always been a leader towards zero waste. We adopted a zero waste resolution in 2011, adopted our first zero waste plan in 2012, and since that time, we've been developing services, programs, and infrastructure to mitigate the amount of materials going to landfill, whether it be for recycling, waste prevention, or even organics recovery. So our city's zero waste plan, as well as our city's climate action plan, sets targets for organics and sets targets to incentivize recycling. And that's also codified in our local Chapter 13 code, which requires a diversion of these materials, both recyclables and organics. And, aside from all the mandates, aside from the environmental policy goals, in Oceanside, we've done a great job in partnership with Waste Management to not only develop stellar services for our businesses and for our residents, but to develop it in such a way to incentivize recycling. So through right sizing and downsizing opportunities, customers that take advantage of these diversion programs and take advantage of our technical assistance actually have the opportunity to reduce the amount of money that they pay for landfill services. So in essence, organics recycling is 75% of the cost of landfill services, and recycling itself is 50% of the cost of landfill services. So when you're looking at your services as a whole, it's really important to look at, everything that you're doing, everything that you're producing, and finding ways to mitigate how much is going into the landfill bin. And if you do that to the fullest extent possible, for the most part, you have opportunity for cost savings. And we'll talk about that as we move on, but we can move on to the next slide. So today it's the basics. We rolled out the services last year. Last August, we started with the rollout of food scraps recycling services for all businesses. To date, we have over 1,000 businesses in Oceanside that have subscribed to food scraps recycling services. Great job, Oceanside. And fortunately, because of the way we've done the program, because of the way the rates are set to incentivize recycling organics, we've actually worked with over 70% of those businesses to find cost savings. So it's been a great opportunity to help businesses as they, recover from COVID-19 and be more resilient as they move forward in their future operations. So when we talk about food scraps recycling, we need to talk about the full stream itself, right? So we have 3 streams in Oceanside. And actually, I want to correct myself. We actually have 4 streams for the business community in Oceanside. So businesses today, the services you have available are either your landfill services, your recycling services, now your food scrap services, and then you also have optional yard waste services. These services enable you to divert your materials for recycling and processing, and we'll go into details on what that looks like later. But this is an overview of your new sorting system, essentially. So the basics of food scraps is really about looking at what's going in your trash bin today and identifying where those materials belong. Do they even belong in the trash bin? When you look at the 3 systems, you'll find that, over 75% of the materials are either recyclable or either organic. So one of the goals of this is to obviously mitigate the size and level of services for landfill and to right-size services to your new diversion programs. I'm going to hand it over to Annika with my team. She's going to get into the nitty-gritty details of your new services, as well as a reminder of your existing services with recycling. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Yes, so like we said in the beginning, this is the back to basics. This is to remind everyone exactly what can already go into your current recycling bin, and now what's going to be going into your food scraps bin, which is brown. And then whatever is left over, which probably shouldn't be much, will continue going into your landfill bin. So the brown bin is available in 3 different sizes. We have a 64-gallon cart for those that might not be producing as much or have some space constraints. We also have the 2 cubic yard brown bin that's a little bit smaller than your 3-yard trash that you might have been used to before. This also is lockable. And then we have the 10 cubic yard enclosed box. This is a little less common, but it's available to those that might be producing even more and have the space. Now, in terms of services, we have up to 6 days a week for collection. So for those that are food service, you can be getting every day other than Sundays. And that will really help when it comes to mitigating any kind of concerns that you might have with odor, as well as just making sure you're properly managing your waste streams. And I also want to point out that both of these bins accept clear plastic liners as an allowable container for putting your materials into. So you don't need to dump straight into the bin if you feel that that might be a concern for you. If you are concerned about any kind of odors or possibly vermin, that's a way to mitigate that. But we do stress that it needs to be a clear plastic liner so that you're able to see through and see if there's any contamination within there. And like Colleen mentioned before, these services are 75% of the landfill services. So it's when you do properly change over where your streams are going and start to actually sort based on where everything should be going into, you actually can see quite a bit of cost savings. And I want to remind everyone that if you have questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat at any time. We'll try and answer throughout and then also at the end. So just to go over what is acceptable within the new brown bin, that includes meat, bones, dairy, bread, fruit, vegetables, peels, pits, cobs, coffee grounds, really any kind of organic material, no matter if it's cooked or not, can all go into this bin. And then another important material that you need to keep in mind is food soil paper can also go into this. So that includes paper towels, napkins, paper cups, paper egg cartons, and pizza boxes that have soil on them. So any kind of cardboard that has been soiled by food can now go into this container. If it's clean, it should still go into the recycling container and it can be properly recycled and made into additional cardboard. Okay, so part of what we want to do is, as this Back to Basics webinar, is to remind everyone of what shouldn't be going into the bin and really help you avoid contamination. And as part of that, we wanted to show what we've been seeing so far since the program has been launched and easy ways that you can avoid contamination within this new bin. So something to keep in mind is make sure that the liners are not black or not see-through. So oftentimes in photos, we've seen a black plastic bag or a white plastic bag that you can't see through, and that's an automatic tick for contamination, even if you are properly recycling everything within that bag. So just make sure that you're using a clear plastic liner. Additionally, this bin is not the most appropriate and best use for your clean and dry cardboard. That should still go into your recycling bin. And if you need more recycling space, we are happy to accommodate with changing up services to include either more collection days or larger bins so that you can be properly sorting that nice, beautiful dry cardboard. Additionally, this bin should not include any kind of yard waste or green material, so that can still go into your green bin that is for green waste. Please don't have any kind of leaves, dirt, or wood within this container. Additionally, wax and polymer coated paper, so sometimes the takeout containers that have wax coating, that is not appropriate within this bin. Additionally, polystyrene foam packaging for, say, takeout, that needs to be in the landfill bin. If it's packaging from your large blocks of polystyrene foam, that can actually go into your recycle container. Additionally, glass and plastic packaging, if it's hard plastic, should be going into your recycling container. And please avoid rubber, ropes, wires, so anything that might be part of the packaging for food. Okay, so now we just want to give a quick reminder of what should be going into your blue cart or white recycle bin. This is your recycling stream. And like Colleen mentioned, this is 50% of the cost of landfill service. So this, when you appropriately sort, you're actually getting quite a bit of cost savings when you're recycling, as well as the obvious benefits for our environment. So that can still accept any kind of plastic or plastic or glass bottle, any hard plastic containers, as well as milk cartons, cans, aluminum cans, and any kind of aluminum like that. And then, like I mentioned before, nice, clean cardboard and paper. And whenever you're putting something into the recycling container, just remember that it should be clean and dry. My PowerPoint stopped working. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so our next and our last stream is our gray cart or our green bin, which is for landfill. And like we mentioned, there is also those that use yard waste, which is another green container, but that's for just yard waste and landscaping. But what the majority of you will see is a landfill bin. And that is where you're going to be putting any of your plastic cutlery, any kind of polystyrene packaging like peanuts that you see below, any kind of sanitary material like a napkin or a sanitary napkin or diapers, anything, any kind of bathroom waste should be going again in the landfill bin, as well as broken glass, any kind of broken material like that, and plastic gloves and plastic straws. So those are common contaminants that we've seen, and shredded paper. So that's something to keep in mind. But like we mentioned before, this is not something that you would necessarily have too much of at the end of when you're properly sorting everything else. So really the landfill bin should be your smallest. Okay, and I'm going to kick it back to Colleen now that we've gone over all three streams, and she's going to tell you a bit about how we can properly set up your recycling at your business and resources that the city has.
Great. Thank you so much, Annika. I've been with the city for just about 15 years, and I've been working in this industry. And it's so funny working with a lot of businesses. You'll talk to them and you'll say, okay, well, are you recycling? And they're saying, yes, I can recycle as much as possible. And yet when you take them actually out to their waste bins, more times than not, we see landfill bins or landfill carts practically empty. We see recycling bins overfilling, and we're starting to even see some of that in the organic stream. And it's funny, when we pull up their services on the back end, we find that oftentimes the recycling bin is not going enough times a week. It's the minimal service the business is taking advantage of. And that's kind of that's a problem, right? Because if you're throwing away air, you're throwing away money. So we really encourage you to take advantage of the resources we have available. As Annika showed in her presentation, the majority of materials out there are either recyclable or now actually belong in the new food scraps, food soiled paper bin. So it's really a great opportunity for businesses to try to right size their services and even downsize their services. So I've mentioned before, we have a lot of resources available to you. As part of the full rollout and partnership with Waste Management, we have developed a full zero waste technical assistance team. This team is dedicated to not only getting services out there to our business community, but to helping those businesses be successful. So our zero waste technical assistance team is available to any and every business in Oceanside to provide either virtual or in-person training, and to provide also technical assistance. If your business hasn't received services yet and you want to talk to somebody about what would be the right system for you, give us a call, send us an email. The end of this presentation will have all of those resources and contact information available to you. We will sit down with you, whether it's in person or virtually. We will go over all your services. We'll go over different options you have to right size or downsize, and we'll work with you to get the services that are best for your property. And if you still struggle, or if you're having issues, or if you need help training your employees or your tenants, we're also there for you. We're available to provide actually on-site training. We're available to provide virtual training. We'll provide training to your staff, to your tenants, to your management, anyone and everyone. We are here and available to work with you to be successful. We also provide other resources. We have a lot of different guides. We have guides for employees. We have materials that are geared more towards the food service industry and those types of businesses, but we also have educational materials and resources geared towards everyone else, right? The office type environment, the auto body shop or manufacturing facility. Believe it or not, every generator is actually generating all three of these streams. And so we've set up our services to be able to meet our larger generators' needs, but also be able to meet the needs of smaller generators of these types of materials. Other resources that Waste Management in particular has available for you, they've got locks for your bins. So if you're dealing with contamination, or if you're dealing with dumping, sometimes simply securing your bin with a lock or putting an enclosure can help mitigate those types of issues. So again, we're here to work with you. We'll go ahead and do a site visit. We can do a virtual site visit. We do adhere to COVID safe guidelines and have developed best management practices to be able to meet your needs virtually and in person. So a lot of great effort out there. We also have some webinars that will be coming up down the road. Not only are we working to educate businesses on proper sorting and proper recycling techniques, but we also have a series of resources that are focused on waste reduction, waste prevention, as well as food recovery. I think I mentioned it earlier. The most significant regulation the solid waste industry has seen in over 30 years is SB 1383, and an admirable goal that of that regulation is to divert edible food to feed people. So we've got some great programs in Oceanside. We have a state-of-the-art facility, the city's Green Oceanside Kitchen, that is aimed to make that happen. So we can feed the bellies of our community and not landfills. So we can move to the next slide. We just have a couple more slides, and then we do have time for questions and answers.
And I'm going to just jump in really fast. We actually got a question in the chat about Zoom meetings for trainings, and we can absolutely accommodate a Zoom meeting for either you as an individual or as a group.
Yes.
So any kind of services you need virtually or in person, we're happy to accommodate.
Great question. We'll use any of the features, right? If you need it to be GoTo, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, I swear, I think we've become experts this year on every technology. Even as simple as a FaceTime call, right? If you're a smaller business and you've got a kitchen and you want to make sure, you know, the individuals in your kitchen, you know, hear the details about how to sort properly, you know, we will FaceTime with you if not everybody has a computer, but maybe somebody's got a cell phone. We'll FaceTime with you. We'll walk you through it. We'll walk through the kitchen with you, walk through your office with you, and speak with you and your team. So any and every way. We do also offer, you know, services and education outreach materials, bilingual. So we offer our educational resources in Spanish. We are working to develop our resources in a couple other languages as well. Annika, which languages do we have covered thus far?
So all of our signage is also in Tagalog, and then we will be possibly expanding in future years with some additional languages.
In addition to Spanish. So
yeah.
How can we set you up for success in the food service industry in particular? And honestly, in every industry, not only do you need to think about these services from the back end, right? The bins on the outside, what to order from waste management, but you need to match those services inside. So what we recommend is when you get your services set up, you've got your landfill bin, you've got your recycling bin, and you have your food scraps bin in the back end. You're also setting up the same type of system inside your operations. So you're setting up a 3-stream system that's color coded, right? Recycling is a blue lid, white bin. So hopefully you can find a container that's blue in your office and set up a blue container. Food scraps is a brown bin. So we recommend trying to find some sort of brown bin and putting signage on it. And that then matches your food scraps on the back end. Not only does this help educate the person utilizing these indoor containers, but it definitely reinforces the color coding system to have whoever's servicing those containers, so your maintenance team. So, you know, best management practices are to color code the receptacles, apply signage everywhere you have these 3-stream systems set up. You always want to pair and centralize your receptacles. A lot of people think, well, yeah, I've got my recycling container on one side of the kitchen, and then I've got my food scraps container on the other side, and then I've got the trash bin, you know, over by, you know, the fridge, right? Human nature, I hate to say it, is lazy. So if someone's, you know, taking a break by the fridge and they've got an item, they're most likely to just throw that item in whatever bin is standing right next to them. So the key really is to buddy them up everywhere they exist. So everywhere you have a landfill bin, other than the bathroom, you want to put a recycling bin next to it and a food scraps bin next to it. And studies have shown that that really helps mitigate contamination significantly and really helps kind of with human behavior, right? Other great opportunities to set up for success is using reusable or compostable or recyclable foodware in your basic operations. So if you sell food product, selling that food product in packaging that can be recycled or composted through the food scrap system. And so this is kind of an example of reusable. We do have restaurants in Oceanside that do use reusables. Even in COVID, restaurants, either through the health department, have found very safe ways to be able to incorporate reusables within their system. I'm very proud of our restaurant community for how resilient they've become and what they've done over the past year to maintain their sustainability ethos, but to also get back to business in the current environment. And as mentioned earlier, a major part of the new regulations is to require and mandate the donation of edible food and food recovery. And at the end of the day, it shouldn't be about a mandate. It really should be about the right thing to do. And even on top of that, oftentimes, if you really incorporate food waste prevention in your operations or food donation, at the end of the day, that means that's less material you have to pay for either recycling or disposal. So the donation of edible food is not only a good thing to do for the community, but at times it really can be a good thing to do for your pocket or wallet. And provide customers access to recycling bins, right? So access to the 3-stream system. When I rolled out mandatory recycling in Oceanside back in 2014. We rolled out recycling services at over 30 city facilities. And when we did that, basically what we did is we went around all the city facilities and matched them up with every trash can. So nobody could find a trash can without it being buddied with a recycling container. As we're rolling out these services, we did that at City Hall and city facilities throughout the fall. We've done the same thing, and we found that that's really helped to make it successful. Other things that we've done is, if you can't afford to buy 3-stream systems throughout your office or throughout your place of business, what we did is we started to, in our own city facilities, we started to remove individual trash cans at desk and set up centralized zero waste stations throughout the offices or in communal areas. And so that encouraged employees to get up, stand up, not be sitting all day, and it encouraged employees to do the right thing at the zero waste stations set up within their business. And as I mentioned before, we're here to help. As part of the program, the city does provide businesses with a startup kit. The startup kit actually includes these 3 containers. Actually, it's a blue recycling container, a brown container, and then a landfill insert. We have signage for you. We'll even print out copies of that signage. So if you need more than one sign, we'll help provide that for you, in addition to the technical training and support that we offered earlier. I think you're reading.
I'm just going to jump in.
Yep, sure.
This is for office and retail, but just so you know, it's going to be the exact same thing as if you were a food service. Just something to keep in mind that you'll want to do this obviously in places where people are often, a centralized location, or if you have, say, a kitchen. And employee training is very key, no matter what kind of business you are, and that's something we can offer. So these are just the containers, so you can see the different offerings. And it looks like Colleen got muted, so I'm going to unmute her.
That's okay. But yeah, so this is just examples of making it work. Even in this commercial kitchen here, you see you've got the chef, he's chopping up materials. So it makes sense then to have the food scraps right next to that chopping station, and then the recycling, and then the landfill bin. So having it really paired up everywhere is key. We have posters that you can also put above the containers themselves as well.
And then this is just an example of all of the resources we have available for you. So like Colleen mentioned, we can provide all of these things in person as printed. We also have all of these materials on our website. So just let us know if you need any more printed or direction on where to go when you're trying to set up your successful operations, and we are happy to help.
So with that, here's our contact information. The email at the top is our food scraps team. So if you need help with your existing services, if you haven't set up food scrap services yet and you'd like us to work with you, or even if you have set up the services, but maybe through this presentation, you see that you might have more opportunity to right size or downsize your services, or you need more training. Again, my team and I and Waste Management, we're here to help. Daniel Butler and his team at Waste Management, their operational team and their education team are phenomenal and very, very good at getting businesses set up for success, for zero waste and climate action. So do we have any other questions today?
The only other question I see right now is just who to contact to set up a training. And so like we said, go ahead and email Oceanside food scraps at wm.com, and the Zero Waste Technical Assistance team will set up a time. They will contact you directly in order to figure out the best way to conduct your training and anything that you would need in terms of in-person supplies. And then please feel free to continue asking any questions. We have a question here. I guess they're all going to me, Colleen, so I'll just divvy them out. But it asks, are you available or able to lock the 64-gallon container? So no, this doesn't have the ability to be locked. But Daniel, if you want to provide any, or Colleen, you want to give any more instructions?
It'd be great to hear from Daniel, because I know he's our expert in operations.
Hey guys, yeah, unfortunately we don't have the locking mechanism for those 64-gallon carts, but there are best practices you can engage in, including securing them inside your enclosure, which you are able to lock, and potentially bringing them in-house if possible at the end of the day. But we do encourage you to secure those as best as possible.
And I know when we were rolling this out, we had businesses that kind of a middle-sized business, you know, they were nervous about starting this new program, you know, how to divert food scraps. And so we did have a lot of businesses that said, okay, I just want minimum amount of food scraps. I just want the cart, and I'm going to keep my 3-yard landfill bin and keep my 3-yard recycling bin. Well, when you really look at the pie of materials that are currently generated for disposal or recycling, you know, 30 to 40% of those materials are organic. So we're really trying to work with businesses to, you know, maybe let go a little bit of that large landfill bin and replace it with either a 2-yard food scraps bin rather than just going to a cart, and maybe considering working with a split bin for landfill materials and recycling. So there's a lot of different options and service options to help you be successful. If you have a cart and you're struggling with securing it, you don't really have space indoors to keep it, you might consider going with a bin, because you can secure a bin. And maybe just have that service one time a week, and then look at cost savings opportunities by changing your landfill services, because you're basically taking what's in a landfill bin prior to this program and putting it into the new brown bin. And I know I didn't mention it earlier, but I want to give a lot of credit to Waste Management. They have a phenomenal system for processing of these materials. These materials are processed into a bioslurry that is then turned into energy to help you know, supply energy to our water reclamation facilities. Currently, the facilities, the energy is being supplied to facilities in the Los Angeles area, but really it's a very innovative approach to turning these materials into renewable energy sources for our communities. So great question.
Okay, and I see 2 more questions. So someone's asking if the coffee filters are acceptable within the food scraps container, and then how are dumped materials in landfill handled? So I'm going to toss those both over to Daniel.
Sure. First part, coffee filters are accepted as part of what we call the food soil paper. Those would break down and disintegrate with our process. Obviously, coffee, the grounds and the filters work great. If we could separate them, that's also a possibility, but we do accept them into the stream. The second part of the question, Annika, could you repeat that? I don't think I fully understood what they were asking.
Yes, the question was, how are dumped materials in landfills handled?
Well, how much time do we have here? So it basically, you know, we go to the landfill, and there's several different environmental policies that we do follow in order to effectively bury the material. It's not directly into the ground. It's not as simple as just digging a hole and piling it in. There are several different types of layers and covers that we go through to ensure that the materials does not really impact the earth that we're kind of building on top of. But effectively, it's put into a pile, and then it's covered in various different ways, and then stacked on top of that as we go on and forward. That's basically putting it in a simple way.
It's obviously the last resort. So in a zero waste community like Oceanside, our goal is to divert 75 to 90% of the materials through waste prevention, recovery, and recycling. So ultimately that landfill bin is the last place we want to be putting our resources. We want to turn these resources into either soil, energy, or maybe even a new bottle. So that's pretty exciting about today's systems.
And I see one question up above that I think I missed before. Someone asking about shredded paper.
Shredded paper, that's a clean material. I'd recommend that that stays within the blue recycling cart or the white recycling bin with the blue lid. And we recommend with shredded paper, a way to manage that is to either put the shredded paper in a paper bag, and before putting it into the white recycling bin, we do allow for clear liners to be utilized within the recycling bin, just like we do for the food scraps bin, but we also highly discourage it. The food scraps bin, I understand why clear liners are needed. You want to keep it clean. You're dealing with food material, but for the recycling, we prefer that you just directly put the materials in your recycling bin. That maintains the quality of the recycling. Again, you know, zero waste and recycling is not just about sorting, it's really a full manufacturing and processing system to turn these items into new products.
Okay, and it looks like we have one last question. Are companies responsible for using recycling coating on products? And feel free to ask to unmute if you want to explain this a little further.
Wondering if it's like, you know, are companies responsible to put whether it's recyclable or not on a product? Is there regulation around that? Maybe that's the question. I mean, we encourage the use of recycled content. In particular, California SB 1383 actually mandates the procurement of products made out of recycled content. So you're going to see, you know, the public agency industry procure product made out of recycled content. And I think that's going to drive that movement even farther within the private industry. The city in particular does not have any requirements on coding. There are certain requirements on, you know, how recycled content is represented. But I know that that is continuously evolving at the state level. You stumped me.
I don't see any further questions. But feel free to jot in any additional ones. And if not, you can always email us at the emails listed on this slide, and we'll be happy to follow up.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. We'll be hosting more webinars in the future. We're also going to be hosting webinars in Spanish. Have a great day, and thank you for supporting Zero Waste in Oceanside.